Dobrý den, vítejte u dalšího videa. This video is going to be dedicated to verbs. Special group of verbs that you might not know. What I think you definitely know is the verb být, to be, and mít, to have. But what about bývat and mívat? What is that? Být and bývat both mean to be. The only difference is that Bývat expresses a repeated action either in the present or in the past. When we use the verb bývat, we could translate it as usually be, usually or frequently be, as well as the verb mívat. Mít and mívat mean to have, but mívat describes an action, something that we usually have or used to have if we use the past tense. If you listen to Czech songs, there is a high chance that you heard these two verbs. For example,
Býval jsem chudý jak kostelní myš.
Or
Míval jsem klobouk, leč klobouk.
or this one.
Míval jsem holku v Kladně.
We will get to the lyrics later. Now let's take a closer look at these two verbs and how to use them in present and past tense. Jdeme na to. Ahoj, vítejte na mém kanále Czech by Zuzka, kde vám pomocí angličtiny vysvětluju českou gramatiku. The verb bývat could be translated as usually be. In Czech it would be obvykle být. Like I said, we can use it for present and past. We're gonna start with a few examples in the present tense. So something that usually happens or usually isn't. It can also be in the negative form. O víkendech bývám pryč. O víkendech bývám pryč. Here we can see bývám, and you can guess from this form that it refers to já. Já bývám. I am usually away on weekends. I'm usually away on weekends. O víkendech bývám pryč. You can use bývám, but instead you can also say o víkendech jsem obvykle. O víkendech jsem většinou pryč. But instead of saying jsem obvykle, you can also say bývám. And in that case, there's no need to say how often, because this already means that it's something that usually happens or doesn't happen. Hanka nebývá naštvaná. Now we see that it is related to the third person. Hanka nebývá. Ona nebývá. So Hanka usually is not angry. Or Hanka usually doesn't get angry. Hanka obvykle není naštvaná, většinou není naštvaná, nebo Hanka nebývá naštvaná. So nebývá means usually is not. Nebývá. If you're a Spanish speaker or you know Spanish, this form and the forms that I'm going to talk about here in this video are translated with the verb soler and the infinitive. So this particular form of the verb could be called habitual verb, just like the verb to have that we're going to see soon. Next one. Češi bývají v létě na chatě nebo u moře. Češi bývají. Oni bývají. So bývají refers to oni. So the Czechs usually are at the cottage or at the sea in the summer. Usually spend also. The verb to be is a little bit more relaxed in Czech. Czechs usually spend their summer at the cottage or at the sea. Češi bývají v létě na chatě nebo u moře. Bývají, obvykle jsou. When you take a look at these forms, you can see that it follows the conjugation of the first group, the A group. For example, like the verb dělat. Here you can see the conjugation. Já bývám, ty býváš, on bývá, my býváme, vy býváte, oni bývají. So this was the present tense. Now let's see the past tense. These are the sentences in the past tense. Jako dítě jsem býval hodně nemocný. Býval, býval jsem. You can see a typical past tense with the AL ending. Býval jsem, I used to be. So in the past tense, we can translate this as used to do something. Used to and the infinitive. In Spanish, solía ser. As a child, I used to be sick a lot. Jako dítě jsem býval hodně nemocný. This is the typical past tense. I would say bývala, bývala jsem. The feminine form. Bývala jsem, býval jsem. V téhle restauraci bývalo plno. Bývalo plno. This restaurant used to be crowded. Literally, in this restaurant, it used to be crowded. You could replace bývalo by obvykle bylo. Obvykle bylo plno. And now let's get to the song that we heard at the beginning.
Jsem chudý jak kostelní
Jarek Nohovica sings. Býval jsem chudý jak kostelní myš. Býval jsem. I used to be as poor as a church mouse. I used to be very poor. Býval jsem chudý jak kostelní myš. So this describes an action in the past that was frequent, that habitually happened. Therefore, we can say bývat, this special form, mívat, is just like beat, but something that happens usually, a habitual verb. Now, let's take a look at the verb to have, mít and mívat. So, what can we expect from the verb mívat? The same as from the verb bývat, except it's related to having. So, we usually have something in the present. So these sentences are in the present tense. Můj manžel mívá dobré nápady. Mívá. Mívá dobré nápady. My husband usually has good ideas. Můj manžel mívá, obvykle má, dobré nápady. Můj manžel má obvykle dobré nápady. This is how we could say it. But we can replace it by mívá. Někdy mívám pocit, že mi nikdo nerozumí. Někdy mívám já. Někdy mívám pocit. I sometimes have a feeling that no one understands me. I sometimes feel like no one understands me. Někdy mívám pocit. So I sometimes. Here we added někdy, which is fine. We want to say that this happens, but it's sometimes, it's not usual. Instead of this, we could also say rarely. I could even say I never have a feeling that no one understands me. We could say nikdy nemívám pocit. Nikdy nemívám takový pocit. I never have such a feeling. Soused mívá hlučné oslavy. Soused mívá. Our neighbor usually has noisy parties. Soused mívá. And the verb mívat can also be used in the past tense, talking about someone that used to have something. Mívali jsme více času. Mívali jsme. We used to have. Mívali jsme, we used to have more time. Mívali jsme více času. Now, we heard this in the song. Míval jsem holku v Kladně, sang by Xindl X.
Býval jsem holku v Kladně.
Míval jsem, I used to have a girlfriend in Kladno. The song is called Míval with a Y, which is a play on words, because Míval with a Y is an animal. It's a raccoon. It's typical of this artist to use wordplay like this. Míval jsem holku v Kladně. And the third song we heard said, Míval jsem klobouk. Míval jsem klobouk. I used to have a hat. Míval jsem klobouk. This is not another type of past tense. It's just a group of verbs that are visually longer. As you can see, they have the va inside of them. And because they're longer, it means that something happens usually, that repeats. It can repeat in the present, it can repeat in the past. These two verbs, Bývat and mívat are the most typical, but those are not the only verbs. We also have more of them. Some of them are not used so much, they are becoming more archaic, but bývat and mívat are really useful. You don't have to use them, but it helps to understand why they appear in the Czech language. And I think it's another layer that enriches the language. Don't you think? I want to show you 5 more verbs that are typically used in this form. Dělat, to do or make, and dělávat. You can see that it became longer. Dělávat. We will practice these verbs in an exercise that will be at the end of this video. I'll tell you the form for the já person in present and past. Já dělávám. Já jsem dělával. Já jsem dělávala. Vidět or vidět se is to see, or vidět se also means to see each other when you meet someone and you get together with someone. And we often use vídávat se. Vídávám se. Vídával jsem se, vídávala jsem se. These verbs are really good for practicing long and short vowels. Říkat, to say or tell, and říkávat, říkávat, to usually say or tell. Já říkávám. Já jsem říkával. Říkávala jsem. Jezdit, to go in a vehicle. Jezdívat, to usually go. Jezdívám, jezdíval jsem, jezdívala jsem. Chodit, to walk or attend. Chodívat. Chodívám, chodíval jsem, chodívala jsem. And many more verbs. Like I mentioned, some of these verbs in this form are used less and less, but they are very practical. Let's take a look at how to use them in context. We will practice the use of those verbs with an exercise. You have 6 sentences and your task is to complete the right form of the verb and the right tense. Follow the English translation and that will help you. If you're not sure how to conjugate these verbs, you can check the internet language manual, příručka. Here's the link. Pause the video while you work on this. And now let's check it. Číslo 1. Mívali jsme chatu u řeky. Mívali jsme. Číslo 2. Tohle vždycky říkával náš děda. Tohle vždycky říkával. Říkával. Číslo 3. S kamarády ze školy se vídám málo. Vídám se málo. Číslo 4. Jezdívala k nám teta z Moravy. Jezdívala k nám. Číslo 5. Dělávám to nerada. Dělávám to nerada. A číslo 6. Jako malí jsme chodívali bosy. Jako malí jsme chodívali bosy. A to je všechno. Thanks for watching. I believe you learned something new. Do you know any other songs where you can hear these verbs? Or have you seen these verbs used somewhere else? Were you able to understand them? Keep up the great work learning Czech, and I'm really happy that you are studying with me. If you're interested in my other learning material, don't forget to check the link to my printable ebooks. Uvidíme se příští týden. Ahoj!